Thayne, I know you're a licensed pilot. I'm always obsessed with what happens when something goes wrong in the cockpit. You have any scary stories, any moments in the air where you're like, oh shit?
Yeah, I think actually the three times that I've almost killed myself were probably all in planes. Um, I had one time. This is all coming across the Cascade. So I used to live in Idaho, and I had a small plane with a group of friends, and I would fly over to visit my family in Oregon. And so one time over the Cascades, I don't know why, but the engine just started going like it just wasn't running well. So I was like, uh-oh, this isn't good. Um, so the first thing that goes through your mind is like, okay, where am I going to land? Like, if this thing actually craps out, where am I going to set it down? And it was over the Cascades, so this is like not really a whole lot of areas, it's just trees and mountains. Um, but I did see a forest road, so I was like, okay, that's probably my best bet. It's not going to be a good one, but at least it's a road, not nothing. Um, and then after that, you kind of just, I mean, they teach you in flight school, there's some things that are more likely that you should check first, and you go through, check those. And I think what happened is I was descending, and when you descend and you're reducing the throttle, you can get carb heat, or excuse me, carb ice that'll build up, and that will basically block air from going through the carb and then choke the engine out. So the first thing I did was just turn carb heat on, and that seemed to solve it. Carb heat on, mixture rich, and that seemed to solve it. So that was fine. The other one that was probably more scary was I was in Bend. It was high density altitude. We had got there in the morning, so it was colder. But then in the afternoon, it's a high airport. It's hot, and so the density altitude goes way up. And we were just in like a little Cessna, so it's not super powerful. And my buddy wanted to. This is like right after I got my license, and we had the whole thing was like packed with ski gear. And my buddy wanted to like go up with us. He lives in Bend, so like, all right, I'll take you up for like a quick, just we'll fly around. And we took off, and it just like after takeoff, it just wouldn't climb. It was basically just kind of like putzing along. And again, you just kind of go back to your training. The instant reaction that you want to do is like pull up and try and climb more, but that would just get you into a stall. So training just says, just keep the speed that you're supposed to have. Eventually something will happen. And so I just basically kept it pitched at the same angle. And eventually I think we caught like an updraft, and it just boosted us up. And then from there we were able to keep going. But that density altitude thing that'll get you for sure. If you have an under power plane.
Back to your first scary moment. I know you're in the drone industry building drones, American made drones. Is there anything that you can learn from like the altitude or the freezing of the motors or anything like that and apply it to drones? Because I know Augustus over at Rainmakers talking about how a lot of the drones today, you fly them up high altitude or into clouds and they kind of don't work.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, icing is probably one of the things. His use case is very prescient because they obviously get into ice flying in the clouds. In the Pacific Northwest, especially, it's just one of the worst places for icing that you can be in. So yeah, I mean, you just want to stay. You generally have to stay out of the clouds unless you're licensed to go do it anyway. So that comes into play. But even if you're taking off and like maybe the mission is cold, I've had missions I've flown in farm fields where it's like 5 below. It's like super cold. So you just got to make sure you don't have ice on your props, that they don't form, because that'll obviously ruin the airflow, and then you don't have lift, then the drone doesn't form. So there's some similarities like that. And then I would say also just like the mentality has to be similar. If something goes wrong, you got to go through the checklist in your head and just kind of try and troubleshoot really quickly.
Who makes the best drones in the world today?
Oh, it's hands down it's DJI. There's no one that's even close, really. If we're talking about that segment, I mean, drone is such a big word, but yeah, in the small UAS space, under 55 pounds, they're the 800-pound gorilla, no doubt.
Before we get into DJI, what separates a good drone from a bad drone? Because the amateur looking at it says, I just see a piece of plastic, a quadcopter basically. How is the one I pull off the shelf at Walmart or the one a lot of American manufacturers make, how is that different than what DJI makes?
Yeah, I think the two biggest things, and there's a bunch of things that kind of fall under each of these categories, but the two biggest things are one, reliability. When you go use it, it's going to work the way that you expect. You're not going to have like a flyaway, or It's not going to have like some problem connecting, or it's not going to fall apart, or just rattle itself into pieces. So reliability is super important. And then the second is I would call it like operator first design. There are so many things that you can do in your design that either make the operator's experience fantastic when they go use it. But the flow of operations is smooth and just a joy to go fly. You're not like fighting the system. On the opposite side, there's a bunch of things that you can do to mess that up, and it basically makes the operator's day hell, because every time they use it, there's this one way that the drone manufacturer designed it, and they just have to like fight that lack of good design every time they use it, and then it just becomes a hated product. So that operator first design is a make or break. It'll make people absolutely love your product, like in the case of DJI, because they've done a good job with that, or it'll make people just like loathe the thing. So those are probably the two biggest things.
Is that a software or a hardware problem, or both?
It's both. Yeah, it's not really separable. You gotta do good design on both fronts.
So how dominant is DJI in the drone industry? And then just to give you it's hard to put a number on it, but how better is it than the best US technology today?
It's so they're extremely dominant. I think this stat's a few years old, but they own something like 90% of the US market in that small UAS category. So they're preeminent. And then in terms of how much better, I mean, there are some manufacturers that are starting to get close. But I'd say it's still probably an order of magnitude, like at least. And that's just against the top players. Against some of the other players, like, there's a whole bunch of drone companies out there. Against some of the other ones, it's just like, I don't know, they're probably like 5 or 10 years behind, easily.
Wow.
Just if you look at like what DJI built in their product line, you look at the history of it, the feature set and the quality and the operator first design that DJI has is at least 5 to 10 years past what other drone companies have.
And that 5 to 10 year gap, what does that mean in practical terms? I mean, maybe, someone might understand, hey, a Tesla from today goes 300 kilometers an hour or whatever, versus one 5 or 10 years ago went 200 or 150. Is there any hard metrics that say, hey, this is what that 5 to 10 year gap means in drones?
Yeah, there's a range of things. So it's hard to really pin down to one thing exclusively, but something as simple as like folding arms. There are drone manufacturers out there who are still coming out with models that don't have drone arms that fold. And that's like kind of a big deal, right? Because it's like when you're, again, going back to that operator first design, the guy has to lug a case around every time they use it. So if your arms don't fold, that makes the case bigger. That makes that lugging around thing more of a pain. I was with a customer the other day, and I was demoing our system, and we have this big case because I had two drones in it, and so it's a fairly large case. That was the first thing he noticed. He's like, "Well, that case is huge. Like, that's not the thing I'm lugging around, right?" And I was like, "No, don't worry. This is I have 2 drones in here. It's not like this is not the case we're shipping with, but like that's something that people instantly notice." The other thing would be like the software. The software is built in mind with the payload that you're going to use. So when you attach the payload in a DJI system, the ground control software knows that payload's attached. The UI has actually changed to accommodate that software. There's like buttons and features and sliders and everything that are associated with that payload. DJI didn't have that on the S100 or the forget their other like big hexcopter drone that they had a while back. I think it was like the Matrice, one of the earlier Matrices. But that thing, it just provided power. There was no like, that's how a lot of drones are now too. It just provides power, and then the payload hangs off there, does what it does. But the software isn't talking to the payload. Sometimes you can't even see the video feed through the payload. So I think drone manufacturers in the US are getting better at that. But since a lot of them don't make their own payloads, it's not as a tight integration that you would want. And then usually there's like an integration that you have to do. You have to go into some GUI and say, okay, yeah, like, here I got to change the IP address here to make it work with this. And for operators, that's like, I don't want to do that. If I have a fleet of 50 drones, now I have to go do that 50 times. If you're a UAS manager, that's actually the person who usually does it, because the techs who are flying usually aren't as tech savvy. And so now it just makes the UAS manager's job a headache to have to do that 50 times or whatever it's going to be. So those are all features that DJI didn't have before, but they've created now, but are still lacking with a lot of the US guys.
Why is America so far behind on drones?
Man, another just big question. I think that there's several reasons. I mean, there's obviously the like I think uh, the first and foremost one is I actually just think that we haven't done a good job doing the product management side of it. I know that sounds silly, but like you'll be shocked. Even some of the top players, they'll release a drone that's just like missing some things that you're like, why did the product manager not put this in the PRD? Like this is like a thing that would have been obvious. Like there's a dock out there. It's a super expensive dock, 180,000 dock. It doesn't recharge batteries. And then the customers are like, hey, like, does this thing do battery charge? And they're like, no, but you can buy another dock. It's like, well, what kind of an answer is that? I paid 180 grand and it doesn't do that. Whereas DJI's dock is like 30 grand and it does that. Um, so, there's stuff like that where I just think the people who have been building drones, almost none of them have been operators and they just haven't done a good job designing their drone for the operator. Um, and then DJI also has this like very founder driven model. I'm forgetting his first name, but Mr. Wang, the guy who runs DJI, he's like an obsessive. I've heard that he has a massive table in his office. It's huge. It's like I don't know, 40 feet long. It has a little pull out where he sleeps. He'll like sleep in his table, and he's got all of his plans for everything on the whole thing. So he's just like totally obsessed with the product, and so that's why I end up with a really good one. So anyway, that's all just like around product design and being operator first. The other reason, there's a bunch of structural reasons. China has dominated the electronics industry now for a really long time, so they have that whole ecosystem of manufacturing that I think is plenty of people have realized that and have talked about that extensively, and that affects a whole bunch of different products. But it definitely affects drones as well. So I'd say those are the two things. Like structurally, China's just much better set up to build this type of thing, and then two, the company that the preeminent company DJI is run by a guy who is just obsessed with the problem and lives it, breathes it, like 24/7.
Besides the product management side of things, is there a single biggest problem that America has to fix to become dominant in drones, or at least on par with China, or is it just this whole bunch of things that needs to be sorted out?
I think it's a handful of things. I mean, we definitely need to solve the structural issue to help make manufacturing stuff here easier. I like to manufacture that type of product. That would obviously go a long way because that'll drive the price down, um, which is important. But I honestly think I always feel like that's kind of a cope. Like most drone manufacturers, when I hear them talk about the problem, they're like, oh, we don't make motors, or we don't have like, we can't make batteries here or whatever. They have a Shenzhen, and we have Silicon Valley, so we're good at software. They're good at hardware. I feel like that's kind of like it's true, but it's also kind of a cope because it's like, okay, but there are companies here that received millions of dollars. They have made products now for 10 years, and they still just produce a product that's not very good. And that's just like a design philosophy problem. They have built the drone, they just didn't build it right. So I honestly think it's more that, and you know, U.S. companies, they're sensitive to price, obviously. So they don't want a drone that costs like a ton, but like they also will they expect that if it's made in America, it's going to be more expensive. I mean, the people I were dumbing for, they're like, look, charge what you need to charge for the drone. We need one that works. Like our operation is complicated. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. We have to have a well-designed drone that's reliable. Like that just has to work. And so people, they'll swallow the price as long as it's not exorbitant, but they want the drone to be built right. There's just still aren't doing that here.
You're in the drone making business. What is the hardest thing about building a drone?
I think this will be a little bit of a counter-tube answer, but I think actually it's this open source honey trap. That's kind of how we think about it. There is a huge like gravity to just use like open source stuff. Like, hey, there's the open source Pixhawk hardware. I can go use that. I don't have to create my own board. That one's fine. It'll work. Or hey, there's an open source autopilot. There's an open source ground control system. Like those are all there. I won't rebuild that stack. I'll just use that. So there's this huge pull and temptation to do that. But I think that just sets you up for failure because once you go down that road, you start going down to end up in a place where it becomes very hard to make the thing operator first now because you're using all of these tools that are these like very generalist tools and then produce just like kind of a crappier designed product, and so you never can get to the quality. So I think actually it's, I mean, there's going to be obviously a lot of things that will be difficult about actually building it, but I think the temptation to use the open source and go that route is actually the biggest thing that kills most people.
Do you think someone needs to use like something like Replit to build a whole new closed sourced coding ecosystem for drones, or like how is that actually going to get sorted out?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. That's basically what we're doing. We're trying to build as
Okay.
much of the, we ultimately want to build as much of the whole stack as we can, because I think if you want to end up with a really nice drone that is reliable and has all the things that we talked about, then I think you kind of have to do it yourself, and you can't get stuck in the open source world. So yeah, we're going to do that. We're starting with the software first, software and the drone frame and some other bits and pieces there. But yeah, long term, we want to just keep bringing the stack in house.
It seems like America is not going to beat DJI and other Chinese drone manufacturers on scale, or at least, you're not going to win at their playing their game. So how does America beat DJI, or how do you build the American DJI?
Actually, counterintuitively, I think you kind of have to play their game. Um,
Interesting.
I, I they are the benchmark. That's what everyone expects. Everyone's been using them now for, depends on the player, but several years. So they've come to expect that. So for us, we're starting with a drone size that it does have a higher price tag even from DJI standpoint. It's a more expensive system, and we're doing that on purpose, kind of like what Tesla did, where they made the expensive car first before they got to scale. So we're not even going to attempt to make like a smaller drone until we can make it for under 10 grand. Because like if you can't make it for under 10 grand, like a Mavic size drone, people are just like, I don't want this. Like it's too expensive for me. So why would I do that? I'm used to a Mavic that costs like anywhere from 5 to 7 grand. Um, so I think what you have to do is start with models that you can build at low scale first. Do a really good job, make it as close to DJI as possible. Maybe even improve. There's some areas where you can improve over DJI, um, especially like, well, there's like this whole customer service and making sure the drone's running aspect that I think also a lot of drone companies mess up. So it's not just that part, but like the processes around the product are important. So anyway, start there with low scale, and then only when you're ready, do models that you can actually produce for a price that people will accept.
Is there a way to categorize different drone sizes today? Like, is there grade 1, grade 2, grade 3? I think maybe a lot of people have seen the small FPV drones from Ukraine, and then on the other side, maybe the giant Reaper drones from 15, 20 years ago in Iraq and Afghanistan. Just talk to me about like the different sizes, different types of drones, their use cases.
Yeah, totally. So there's a couple ways to do it. The U.S. military has like this drone group sizing system. So there's group 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's group 5 as well. But group 1 is basically like the small drones that you would expect, and even like the sort of larger small UAS that we're building. So I think it's anything under 100 pounds. I might get that slightly wrong. Group 2 is like 200 to 300. Group 3, and so on and so forth. So all the upper groups, I would say, are all very military oriented at this point, with the exception of some of the delivery drones that are kind of like in the larger group 2 and 3 size. Um, and their use cases are like, recon, actual like offense if you're going to like have missiles on it and strike something, ISR, stuff like that, all those kind of military use cases. And then once you get to group 1, I think it splits. Then you're in like small UAS territory, which is like anything under 55 pounds. And within small UAS category, there's like large small UAS, small UAS, medium, so on and so forth. So it's like it becomes this double word. But within that category, if you're looking at some of the larger drones within the small UAS category, they're primarily being used for LiDAR right now. For like larger lidars, and specifically like bathymetric lidars, if you wanted to penetrate water and kind of basically see what the topography underwater looks like. So that's probably the biggest use case. There's a couple other niche, exquisite ones, like people mount these. They hold these like glycol balls, and they're for doing prescriptive burns. So you have this popper with a bunch of these balls. It almost looks like a paintball gun kind of thing, and these little balls will fall out. They'll catch on fire and then start a fire. So just kind of like LiDAR and niche heavy lift stuff there. Um, the medium size, which is what we're building in, I think is probably the most Swiss Army knife of them all because you can pretty much do everything that you could think of in that size. People do inspections with them. They will do mapping with them. They'll do LiDAR with them. There's also all these like exquisite random niche things that you can do with them. So it's really a Swiss Army knife. It can do a whole bunch of stuff. Um, Small and below, usually the drone is built with one payload only, and so it's built for a specific use case. Like there are ones for mapping, there are ones for inspection, there are ones for like search and rescue, so on and so forth. And then the FPV ones, from what I've seen there, it's mostly just like, hey, there's the FPV ones for people having fun, like flying around and doing stuff, and then there's FPV ones to go blow shit up, basically. So that's kind of how I'd see it.
We've talked about America being behind on actual making the drones. What about the counter drone systems? Where is America in that? Because it seems like we have the electronic warfare. You have anti-drone turrets. You have anti-drone lasers. Is America as far behind in the counter drone stuff as it is in actual drones?
I to be honest, I'm actually not as I'm not as knowledgeable about that market. I don't know it as well. So, take everything I'm saying with a bit of a grain of salt. I actually think we're doing pretty good there. There's a whole bunch of startups on that. They're attacking it from multiple different angles. And some of them are really good. Like D-Drone comes up that they've done very well. They have kind of an array of different systems where they both do detection and then also mitigation. There's all of the guys who are kind of have like the automated turrets and everything. So there, I actually think I think the whole D-drone thing, or excuse me, the anti-drone stuff is also a younger industry as it is. It hasn't been around as long as the drone industry itself. So there, I actually think we're doing pretty good because it's younger. There's a bunch of people hopping on it. Everyone realizes the problem. There have been people who have been making stuff in that space for a while. Like one company, Echodyne, they make a small little radar. It was originally actually going to be something that went on the drone to do detect and avoid. So if you had like beyond visual line of sight operations, they had this small radar, so you could put it on the drone, and then the drone can avoid aircraft and stuff. They were a little early for that because there just wasn't that much beyond visual line of sight stuff happening. So they kind of pivoted to more like, hey, we'll have these turrets and it'll look for people at like border crossings or basically detect people where they shouldn't be. But now they're also kind of getting back into the drones, and they've been around for a very long time. It was a spin out from Intellectual Ventures, that arm up in Seattle. So I think the anti-drone stuff we're actually doing pretty well. That would be my take.
You mentioned beyond visual line of sight. It seems like one of the other big things holding the American drone industry back has been regulation, has been this beyond visual line of sight stuff. I believe we're now at the stage of issuing exemptions and waivers to certain companies. Where are we on the regulation stuff? Do you think beyond visual line of sight is gone? What other regulations are holding the drone industry back?
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you. I think that's about to open up really big with Part 108. So Part 108 is a whole new set of operating rules it's basically specifically designed to enable beyond visual line of sight. And I think the people that's really going to open a lot of possibilities for are all the drone delivery companies. So like, Walmart, Amazon Prime Air. I'm blanking on the other one that's actually ahead of everybody. Zipline. Yes. Thank you. So yeah, I think that's about to open up that use case. There's other use cases that are more related towards what we're doing that will also be enabled by that. So that'll be really helpful. Before it was like, prior to 108 coming out, it was very difficult. Very early on in the exemption process, like there were no rules. Like people didn't know how we even write an exemption. So that kind of progressed, and the exemption process, I think, is a little bit more clear, so people can get them now. But Part 108 is going to make it just much, much better.
If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about drone regulations tomorrow, do you think 108 is pretty perfect, or what else would you change?
I actually think a lot of it would be less on the drone operation side and more about getting rid of regulations that help us build the type of manufacturing ecosystem here. Like that's going to be really the bigger thing. Because, people have found within the rules now, they found plenty of use cases for operating. I mean, everyone's operating here. They just use DJI. So the operating side, I think, is on track to be good. Part 108 is a good thing, but I think we need to be able to make all of the inputs that go into a drone here. So there's a ton of deregulation that needs to happen across the board. There's like labor deregulation. I mean, cost of labor here is super expensive. I don't know if this is kind of an economics question, but there's a whole reasons why our labor costs are way expensive. There's a whole bunch of environmental stuff that prevents us from building things, whether that's factories getting built or whether that's like processing of rare earths. We just like can't do that for these environmental reasons. I talked to a guy who he's doing a lot of PCB board stuff, and he's like, yeah, it's just like the regulations here basically make it so we can't make PCB boards in the volumes that we need. So like that needs to be changed. We should be able to make PCB boards here and not have to rely on China for that. So I think more the regulation needs to be taken care of at that side of the spectrum than operating itself.
If you were to rip apart one of your drones, is there one component that's hardest to source domestically? You mentioned the boards, or is it just kind of like, hey, there's 50 parts and like 40 of them are China dominates?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that China dominates. I would say props, like there's just the vast majority of props are coming from China. There's a few companies in Europe who are doing it, but they're like 4 times as expensive. I can buy the props I need for like $50 from China, but you go to the European company and it's like $250 for the same prop.
Wow.
So that's one. Batteries obviously is a big one. We've been able to get batteries, and there are companies who in the U.S. now who are doing a better job at that. Ethan over at Urus is doing a great job. So they're a good example. Material is doing like 3D printed batteries. They're kind of early, but that's going to be really cool. Gabe Elias over there, he's in Miami. So the battery thing I think is trending in a positive direction. Motors are difficult. The motor company that we've gone with, they don't do their manufacturing here. They do it in Turkey, and they got really long lead times right now because everyone needs motors. So it's kind of across the board, honestly.
We've talked about America and China so far. Maybe Ukraine is the obvious answer here, but is there another country that really gets drones and that is kind of like, is it maybe ahead of America and catching up to China?
It depends. It depends on which, there was all those sizes that we talked about earlier. So it depends on which size and which use case. But I actually think Germany's doing a really good job. So you have Quantum Systems out of Germany, and they're doing really good. They originally made kind of like a VTOL. They have several different models now. They don't have a quad, so they're missing that. But as far as like the fixed wing kind of larger ISR and military stuff, I think they're doing a pretty darn good job. But if you're talking about like quads, I mean, China just still dominates it. And most of the other countries, when you go and look who's making all the components, it's like still Chinese motors and Chinese stuff. So they're just using the components and kind of like designing the frame around them. So China definitely still dominates.
It's like the old meme of the astronaut with the gun to the head. It's like, China makes all the drones, always has been.
Yeah, exactly.
Even for Ukraine. What's the most underrated trend in drones right now, do you think?
One that I don't see a lot of people talking about is there's a big trend right now, especially in the commercial space, going where the model was very service provider oriented to actually just the companies having their own fleets in house. And I think that's gonna be a big trend because once a company gets it in house, they're like, okay, great. Now I have this piece of equipment. Like we got it for this original use case, but what else can I use it for? And the company that I was demoing for a few days ago, that they're in that spot. They basically brought the drones in house, and now they're like, wow, like there's so many things we can use it for. We're going to grow our fleet significantly. They already have a fleet of 30, but that's going to be probably doubled. So just to kind of walk through that a little bit, when drones first came out, it was strictly a consumer thing. It was a toy, for people to go have fun with. Then some people were like, hey, like I could probably make a business out of this. I can take pictures of houses for real estate, whatever. everyone started doing that. So that was like, there was no barrier to entry to someone going and buying a drone at Best Buy and taking pictures of houses. So the service providers started moving into more exquisite types of services. So, service to go do LiDAR maps, or service to go do inspections for utilities. But then what happened is the utilities were like, okay, yeah, now we've seen the value. We can see like how this makes the inspection of our utilities way faster by like a factor of 5. But we're still relying on this other entity, and sometimes they're late. Sometimes they don't deliver the data properly. Like, why don't we just bring this in house? Let's just have our own drone program. We already have our own, fleet of trucks with high-rise equipment. Let's do that with the drone. So I think more and more what you'll see is enterprises just having their own drone fleet that they manage with their own operators and their own UAS manager teams, and just they're going to do it that way instead. And they're just going to find more use cases once they do that, because once the team is in there, it wants to do more. So they're going to just keep using drones for more and more stuff. So I think that's probably one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, fascinating. I never thought about that actually. You can imagine everyone's going to have a chief drone officer.
Yep.
You would imagine that's cool. What use cases are you most excited about? Because obviously everyone talks about the delivery, but listen, getting a hot burrito delivered by flying robot, cool. I love it. I love it as more than anyone. But what other use cases do you think are really going to take off in the next 3-4 years?
I think utilities is going to continue to be really big. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of miles of utility lines we have. But you really just that whole industrial infrastructure use case where you're inspecting something. There's something big outside, whether it's a utility pole or a bridge or a refinery or something. It's some big structure. It's outside. It breaks down, and these things are. You have to crawl up there. You have to have people with hard hats. You have to have high-rise equipment. So it's very difficult. It's very time consuming, and oftentimes it's not safe to have somebody all the way up there. So I think that inspection of large critical infrastructure, especially in the U.S., it's aging. A lot of it's pretty old. So it's a huge cost, but it's also super important, because it's like, this is the stuff that is the backbone of our civilization. We need the power lines to work. We need all these energy pieces of infrastructure to work. So I'm very excited about that one. That's really the one that we're attacking first. But I think that one's just going to grow and grow, because the value is just so clear. You have a safer operation. It often takes, anywhere from 10 to 5 times less time. So critical infrastructure will be very big and continue to grow.
How do you think about, you mentioned D-drone earlier, and I believe they're kind of like drones for public safety. Do you think after, obviously Trump assassination attempt, Charlie Kirk assassination, multiple things have happened. Do you think, I mean, it seems crazy that in 5 years, every stadium, every concert, every political rally, every public gathering over some size will have it. It seems like it's going to have drones as watchmen, essentially.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% true. It's just so easy to go. I mean, if you have to be a little bit sophisticated, but it's not that hard to just go make a drone frame. Like, you can make it out of pretty much anything, and especially if it's just going to be one of these like one-way attack type drones. Like, it's pretty easy. That's more difficult if you're in like a battlefield, because now you have jamming, and so you actually have to get the radio piece right, and so. In Battlefield, it's all about like, how can we produce these for how much of these as possible for cheap, and make sure that it actually gets to the target. But if you're in like the homeland, and there's not like massive radar jamming and all this, GPS jamming and all that happening, anyone can kind of go make stuff and just get on target pretty quickly. So I think that's exactly where it's going to go. I would, if you could get stock into like a anti-drone company, I think you could do really well, because I think they're just going to put them up everywhere, because it's just going to have to happen. It'll be too much of a danger not to have that.
How do you think drones will change the average person's life over the next 5 years? How will they see them in their everyday life?
I think in terms of people actually seeing it, because like the infrastructure stuff is all in the background. Like, you're probably not going to see a lot of that, because a lot of times those things are in remote areas. I think the one where people will actually see it is going to be more in the public safety space. So they're like, drone as first responder is a really big use case. We're not really playing in that, but there's a few there's several there's probably like four horsemen there that are they're going to beat the crap out of each other trying to win that market, but they're all going for it. And so that's going to be very real. Like when you see a 911 call, you're going to see a drone respond to it more and more. So I think that's going to be one where people really notice, hey, there's drones responding to my car crash. Like I crashed the car, all of a sudden the drone's going to come here and like evaluate it. Um, the other one I think is delivery. That will be the other one where people like actually see it often because they're going to roll that out, and it's going to make such a big difference for the last mile delivery of small things rather than like it's coming on a truck. You're just going to get it on a drone. So those probably be the two where people actually see a lot of what's going on. Our stuff's really going to be more in the background. You won't really notice it.
Where are we with swarm technology, autonomous technology today on drones? Like, are we still in the first inning? Does it even work? Because it's kind of like that's the one that maybe frightens some people, but also excites others. So where is the technology today?
It's where I see it the most is in these drone shows.
Right.
And they've gotten pretty good. Like some of those shows are quite exquisite, especially in China. I think a little bit of it's kind of like, hey, yeah, we have drone. Look at our drone show, but also like we have 1,000, drones swarming together. Like, don't mess with us because that could be a military weapon as well. But I think it's definitely early, but it's well on its way. Um, there have obviously been a couple of high profile accidents with drone swarms where they've come down and hit people, and that's obviously not good. Um, but I think like anything, people focus much more on when something went wrong than like the hundred other times that it's gone right. So I think it's coming along. And then the other use case where I've seen swarms um, be used quite successfully is with the crop spraying.
Mm.
So they have these. I'm sure you've seen them. They're much bigger. They have a tank. They'll spray pesticides or whatever, and they'll use several of them because the swath width is not huge on a sprayer. If you're on a ground sprayer in agriculture, you're talking about like 40-foot booms on either side. The swath is massive. And so if you want to get something close to that, or even like a crop dusting aircraft, you need to use multiple. So I've seen people use multiple, and they'll just kind of all go out in a line, spray, move over, all go on a line. So I could see that be um, used more and more as well, at least on the commercial side of things.
Are there any recent stories that kind of made you stand up and take notice? One I saw was the Colombian Black Hawk was downed by a drone. You can say a really positive one on the commercial side. I love the spraying one. I also saw one about they're tagging whales now in the ocean, but then maybe on the military side as well.
Yeah, I think, there's a little bit of recency bias here with my demo, but I was demoing for a large theme park, and
Oh, nice.
that was really cool. Sorry, with this chicken in the background. I
I
don't know if you
I
can
love
hear.
it. The Hawaiian roosters.
Yeah, he's croaking off. But yeah, I would say like that was just very impressive. Having been in drone operations for a while, I thought my operation was complicated when I was doing it in agriculture because we were, doing these very, very big surveys of these large fields. But this, uh, this use case in the theme park was just crazy because they have it, you would not believe what it takes to keep the wheels on the track for a theme park. There's so much infrastructure. There's a whole operation that takes place every evening to make sure that the rides are working tomorrow, and they have it all worked
Mm.
out. If this ride's like not working, we're losing this amount of money. So anyway, I just found it extremely impressive what they were able to do. It's a fantastic use case because it's like they went from an inspection of this ride taking like 5 hours to 15 minutes with the drone. So
Wow.
I found it very compelling because the use case was just like clear as day, and then the operation was just amazing. Just watching these guys at night go up these huge structures and fly in probably one of the most like RF rich environments ever. It's just like you got people's phones, you got like rides putting off RF. They have all these RFID tags, and so yeah, it was extremely impressive what they were able to do and just the amount of value that they produced for the theme park by doing it. I found that to be very, very compelling.
So 5 hours to 15 minutes. That's an absolutely incredible use case. Just say a little bit more about what you're working on. What specific segment of the market you're going after. Where are you in the development of the company?
Yeah, sure. So if people know DJI, we're making something that will be very similar to DJI M350, or now they have the M400. So it's going to be in the medium small UAS category. Um, we are targeting inspection first, so that will be we're making the payload, we're making the drone, the payload, the controller, and the battery. Um, the payload will be oriented for inspection. So what you need there is a zoom lens, a wide lens. We're going to actually have a floodlight on it as well. And then you need a laser rangefinder to kind of tell your distance. Um, so that's what we're starting off with first. And then from there, we'll add on more payloads. There's a bunch of payloads that people need. So we'll have a mapping payload. We'll have one that has thermal. We'll have a gimbaled LiDAR. We'll have a spotlight. There's our product roadmap. There's still like a ton of very interesting things that we'll build off of that drone. And then we'll move on to smaller and larger models as well. And in terms of where we're at, we have flying prototype of the drone. We have our controller. We just ordered the PCBs for the controller. We have our software stack is getting more mature. It supports kind of the first basic use cases that we want to address. And then our battery is also underway. It's not fully baked yet, but all of the whole system across all of those things I said is basically in the prototype phase. And we just need to basically get it to a point where it's ready to be flown repeatedly over and over. It's not just like a prototype. So that's kind of where we're at and what we're building. But our goal is
made in
yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Made in America. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, that's more or less what we're working on.
Awesome. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important for people to understand about the drone industry, where it is today, where it's going?
I don't know. I think we covered a lot of it. I guess the only thing I'll say is, there's a lot of attention on the military side of things, and that's for good reason. But I wouldn't underestimate the commercial market. There's already a very big commercial market. It's growing. People are figuring out more use cases every day for these things, just in a commercial setting. And I think with DJI going away, you're just talking about the tool that 90% of people love is about to just get clipped. So you have this, like, I think the commercial market's very exciting because you have basically a great demand picture, and then also like a supply chain crunch. And so I think you're just setting up for like a bunch of alpha there. So that'd be the only thing. It's just, don't forget about commercial. Commercial is very important. And those guys are going to be very much hurting when and if DJI goes away, they're going to be stuck. So we got to kind of deliver.
And just for anyone who doesn't know, where are we? Is DJI getting completely banned in America? Is it getting completely banned for everything? Only certain use cases? What is it? What's going on there?
Yeah, so it's obviously banned federally, so none of the federal entities can use it. 10 states have now banned it for public entities. So it's mostly affected public entities, but it does affect groups that work with public entities. So there's a lot of, just businesses. They're not part of the government, but they do work on behalf of the government, or they do work for people who have stuff on government land, and they can't use DJI in those cases. And so, I went back and looked at the Huawei ban and some of the other bans, and usually it's like about a 3 to 4 year process. People start talking about it. It sort of has to work its way through. And then eventually, yes, the ban shows up and happens. So I believe we're in year 3 of this saga. So the clock is about to strike midnight. And a lot of people are seeing the writing on the wall. So a lot of people that maybe strictly speaking, they don't have to use a non-DJI aircraft right now, they can see where it's going. So they're in the process of refleeting currently. So it's coming down the pipe. I believe the DJI is also set to be reviewed here shortly by the FCC. So that one might be the nail in the coffin, but it's basically around the corner. And I think pretty much everyone knows it. Some people are reacting differently. Some people are still in denial land. They're like, no, it's not going to happen. We're still going to use our DJI. We love this product. We don't want to like be done with it. Other people are like, okay, yeah, I see where this is going. We need to figure out how we get out of this quickly. because we rely on these things now. It's part of our operation. We have to have it. So what are we going to use if they're gone?
Fascinating, fascinating. Maybe Thayne, what we could do to finish is play a game of overrated, underrated. So I'll give, say, a dozen drone-related technologies or use cases, and you can say overrated, underrated, or properly rated. Sound good?
Perfect.
All right, we'll start with the civilian stuff. Drones as first responders.
I would say slightly overrated, but about approaching where it should be.
Drones for public safety.
I'd say it's appropriate.
Drone delivery, civilian drone delivery.
About appropriate.
Inspecting critical infrastructure.
Underrated.
Okay, maybe some military ones now, unless I forgot something on the commercial side. I'm sure it is. AI swarms, drone swarms.
I would say about appropriately rated.
Kamikaze drones.
Maybe a slightly verging on overrated.
Tethered drones. That's been one of the weird things to come out of Ukraine.
That one I think is underrated, especially as it relates to commercial use cases.
Oh, interesting. Very say more for a minute, maybe.
Well, so there's, obviously there's the fiber optic stuff, but there's a ton of use cases where in the civilian world where you just want a drone sitting there for some reason. One of the most underrated ones is probably lights. So there's all these light towers, right? That you'll put up a light tower for like construction, so you can see what you're doing in the dark or whatever. But like you could put a light on a drone, and that makes now your light can be way bigger because you can put it higher. It's easier to move it around and collapse faster. And obviously, like the construction use case is one that comes to mind there. But there's public safety use cases. If there's a car wreck at night, you need to light up the area. So I wouldn't be surprised if you get to a point where DOTs, they have those DOT trucks that respond to various incidents on the road. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you just have a little drone pod that sits in the back of that thing. The guy's going to drive to wherever he needs to go. He's going to press a button in the cab of his truck, and a light's going to pop out of that from the drone. So that's one. But yeah, the whole tether thing, there's a bunch of, once you look into it, there's just like all these different things that you can start doing when you get creative about a particular feature. So I think that one's underrated.
Fascinating. Maritime drones.
Probably underrated.
GPS denied navigation or electronic warfare.
At this point, I think overrated. People know there's a lot of people working on it.
All right, I'm gonna do you a trio of anti-drone stuff. So first, microwave weapons.
I would say probably about appropriate.
Anti-drone lasers.
I would say a little underrated. I haven't heard a ton about that.
Anti-drone turrets.
Overrated. Definitely overrated.
Ooh, okay. Last two. Israel's Iron Dome.
Israel's Iron Dome.
I'd say specifically the drone aspect.
Yeah, I'd say borderline overrated. Well, if we're talking about drones, then it's probably about appropriate. There's some other weaknesses in the Iron Dome, but those are less drone related.
Last one, fixed wing drones.
I would say slightly overrated.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, Thayne, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find out more about you, what your company's working on, keep up to date with all that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter. I think it's like T_Kollmorgen. I don't post there a ton, but when we start having more to show, I'll definitely be posting there. Thoron.us is our website. It's a little bit of a placeholder right now, but that'll also get more mature.
Just how do you spell that for people who might need to know?
Thoron, it's Thoron. Thoron. Awesome. So yeah, those will probably be the two best places. We're pretty dormant at the moment, but that'll pick up here in a little bit once we have more cool stuff to show.
Stealth is the most exciting place to be, right?
Yeah, we're just kind of flying under the radar for now, but yeah, we'll have a lot more to show here, hopefully in the next couple of months.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy Hawaii, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Great talking with you, man.